Hi everyone, Alex is here, and today we'll be discovering how we can create better prompts as a developers, programmers. Let's start! First of all, why should we do that? Very simple. We're in an era where we should know how to work with our new instruments. And AI is one of that. The thing is that the future of the development can be really different, and probably I think that we'll be having LLMs on our machines firstly, and based on that we'll be having even unlimited possibilities and tokens, for example, to working with our LLMs locally to improve our code base, for example. Firstly, let's discover what is and which LLMs do we have. We have open source and not open sources. For example, Llama, made by Meta. It is open source, you can download it on your computer and use it freely. That's incredible, and I think it's the future of LLMs, because the LLMs as ChatGPT or Gemini or, if I'm not mistaken, Claude, they're not open sources. It's really like a business because it's an incredible business, but the problem is that they're using a lot of the energy, a lot of money to create new servers, to optimize requests, etc. That's good and bad in the one way. Because of new technologies, we are more and more working on our local neuron machine understanding, I'll say this way. And that's why I think in the nearest future, such LLMs will also go to our machine. And that's why we'll have two things to discover today. First is how we can work with it right now and how it probably will be in the future, because right now we have some limitations that I want for us to discover. Firstly, let's go with the thing that we have limited tokens. It depends on your company, it depends on what they have, but mostly when you're making requests, you can see, for example, in the percentage how many usage of tokens during the day you have taken, because basically you have some amount of the tokens every day, and the company pays for all of your requests, for example, and you should optimize your requests and responses, so you'll be able to ask more for the chat and also to receive more. When we'll have local LLMs in general, as if I'm not mistaken, you even can do that right now, you don't have the limitation of such tokens. So you can use it as much as your processor or your memory allows you to do that. So that's why the second thing, we'll just won't have any limitations right now. We have, and we'll be discovering that based on our ChatGPT 5, how we can use that. So firstly, don't be afraid of that. That's start to use it. And if someone tells that it's not, it's their problem, because right now it's really important, it's really helpful. So how I'm doing that? It depends on the situation, but I'm trying to do as fast as it can be. I'm trying to dictate what I wanted to receive, and the problem that I have, I could paste the code and ask it to figure it out. It's not an ideal way. So firstly, what you should do, you can create the powerfully new chat and say, for example, your chat for helping me on working with some of my components, and based on that I wanted you firstly to have the context of what I have, and then to figure out of helping me fixing some problems. And after that you can have something like that, and try to group your chat. For example, each chat for working with your specific problem. Why? You cannot extend it as like infinity time. With some time of how many you're making requests, it will be harder for it to answer you in the way you're, for example, website will be just logging. And that is because how many information does it have. So first optimization that could be is to give it instantly context of the applications that we currently have. So I'm saying what it will be doing. And then it says, I will send you a couple of my components and tasks later for you to help me fix them. And we can send it. Great, and it will be looking for that. The next thing, will send our architecture, our stack architecture, which folder do we have where. We can do that in a couple of the ways. I'll show you one of the easiest one. And yeah, that's all. But here's important thing. If you're using personal one, or you're using free, even if I'm not mistaken, even if you're using paid, a lot of your requests could be work to train their models. That's why it's pretty important, especially if you're working as a company, to create enterprise account, because ChatGPT are saying that they're not using your data to train their models. Can we be sure on that? Not for 100%, of course. But there is the risk. It's not important to them. To take, for example, especially if you're a startup, your code. It's more important to them not to be taken to law if they made some leaks on such data. For example, they're saying that it's not going to train its models, but it is. Can you imagine how costly it will be? Which problems could be if they're doing that? That's why it's higher problem to them to do in this way. That's why I think for large companies, we can be mostly sure that they're taking that security. And also, you can discover some experts checking that out. And I'm sure that, for example, we can work with ChatGPT quite good here. It's all about the trust, whom you're trusting, but when you're beginning that, believe me, it's not so important. What we can say? We can say our requirements, what do we have, our stack, etc. etc. Let's try to do that, and give me a minute to take all the information here. Let's check out what do I have for right now, and a quick example what we can do that and in which way. So firstly, which you're personally using the language, it's all better to do in the English because they have more information based on that. Secondly, that's how we can make the context, for example, and I'll be writing what have I been using, what I have been using right now, and etc. So it will have some context on that. And also the stack that we're using. The next thing you can use limitations. Some limitation that you could do. And for example, for us, don't use external libraries. Why we can do that in this way? Because in the future, we won't be able to repeat that every time. So we have just written that one time, and that's amazing. And let's go to the response. So we can write, give to me instant and single answer to my question in unified diff and make a brief explanation. So what will happen for us? It means that it gives you a couple of answers, and you can, by default, looking for only one answer. If you would like to have a couple of them, of course, you can write it down. That's of course not a problem, but I think that the one will be good for you, and it will be instant from the very beginning, so you'll be able to check it out in the code. The next thing, unified diff. Why it's good? It instantly shows you what it removed and what it showed to you. and doesn't show any other things that are not working right now. But you can ask for me how to work with that. You can you can copy the code, but there are a lot of pluses and minuses how I can use that. So you can use Visual Studio, for example, apply Diff from clipboard. So the extension, one of the two, it's for Visual Studio Code, that you just have, for example, in the text format or even in your Vim format, the unified Diff. Who don't know what is unified Diff, let me show you. Unified Diff is something like this. Why don't I show you what was removed and what was added? And in the text, it looks in this way. This means the specific line of code, minuses was removed, plus was added. So, and also the time, and etc., etc., etc. But that's more like a comment. Yeah, you can also check it here. So that calls unified Diff. And you can ask for a brief explanation because mostly we would like to know how does it work. And the problem with CI code that if you fully rely on that, some point you don't understand how does it work. And that's okay because you was just solving the task and you haven't been trying to understand what does it do because it can explain for you quite good. This is like default setting that you could use for working with your LLM. And we're just sending that. It will remember this information and then we can faster and easier give her our context. And let's do that. Hi everyone, I am back here because some problems I should read down my context a little bit faster. What we see here, let's do in the next ways. First, we'll give him a context. I'll send you a couple of files and then ask you to create some tasks. And then I'll just put some of my files. Let's send them step by step. First one, first one, then we have second one. So it instantly understands what is the problem here and send us back what do we have. Migrated, explanation, and instantly unified Diff. Then, because I have task inside of the comments here, I'm sending Java and it instantly says what should I have. And see how less does it take. So it's not taking so many your code and tokens that could be. And this one, based on that, you're saying your system that you have, for example, file, and it's better for you to take it, for example, you have a root here, you're just taking the copy path and you can see the full path, or we can have, for example, it's better to have relative path, sorry. Yeah, the relative path based on your root file. That's how it'll be like basic idea how you can, I think, better work with your LLM. Just create a new file for a specific working with a specific feature. Have the context, how you wanted to work on that, especially if you have only one project, and then send the files. And you can instantly say in file the problem that you have, the comment, for example, here doesn't work this thing or this thing. You're sending that, and it instantly says the div with explanation, and the law tokens has been taken on this way. That's how right now I am making that. Thanks everyone for watching this video. And if you have your own tips working with LLMs, especially in the code area with as a developer, programmer, please write down in the comments. It's very interesting to discover how you're specifically doing that. And we'll be looking to see you in the next videos. Wishing you all the best. Bye.